is up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma, more specifically Dharma Time. As always, I am Dharma, and I am joined with, let me bring him up here, Dope, which is short for the Dope Doctor. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. I'm good.
Look
As
at
you
you
see,
all,
I'm
you clean cut there, man. Wow.
like a baby's bottom.
I'm gonna take your word for that one.
Well, not really, actually. I can never get a real smooth end, but it's good enough.
Okay. Yeah, me either, man. Mine's not smooth right now either. It's been a while.
It looks a little long.
It is soft though, because I started using those products, so it's softer now, and it smells fantastic. Anyways, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. This is, of course, Dope and Dharma. This is our Dharma Time Hour. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can check us out at facebook.com/WPSN99 if you want to join in on the festivities live, make comments and things of that nature. Today's actually a very special day, man. We have a guest today, and I have not spoken to this person other than the last, 15 minutes while we're getting ready for the show. And I'm going to guess 20 years approximately, maybe a little bit more actually. But it is Pride Month, and I definitely wanted to have a show. And the first person that popped in my mind was this individual. And so I reached out to him, and thankfully he was gracious enough to join the show today. And so let me bring him on, and his name is David Gutierrez. What's up, man?
Well, that's a
Good job. Good pronunciation there.
Thank you. I do my best, man. Let me put you on that side. So welcome, man. Welcome.
So
Yeah.
wait a minute. Before David speaks, you already started off interesting.
Uh-oh.
You said, I wanted to do a show for Pride Month. Now, we've done a few shows, obviously, on the Couch Live for Pride Month. And you go, the first person I thought about is somebody you haven't talked to in 20 years?
Yep.
I think we need to change your friends and people. Are you serious? So you're saying that the only gay guy that you came up with is somebody you knew 20 years ago? And I'm just assuming, David, are you a gay person?
Yeah.
Do you not have a problem with our friend here, Trinity, saying that you're the first person that came? Or is that just me?
There's actually a reason for that.
I was going to say, there's probably some context that he's got to provide there.
Oh,
but
maybe I should
Look
have
at
waited.
you.
Okay, I'll
Look
wait
at you
before I
getting
bust
my
him.
back. Friends
Right?
to the end. That's what I'm talking
Wow.
about.
20
Oh,
years
Tell
and
me
he
about his
still has your
journey.
back.
So yeah, you know what? Let's put the context to it, right? So yes, as Louis said, we did some shows on the Couch Live. We've done multiple shows on Pride Month, and then we did a few on Men's Health as well, because it's both Men's Health Month and Pride Month apparently. And so I wanted to do a show on Pride Month for Dharma Time, and I was trying to think of kind of the best way to go about it. And then I remembered that I've known David here since middle school. It was like 7th grade, I think he said. So we've known him for a long time, and I started remembering our friendship and things we used to do, and kind of just how we got along. And then after high school, we kind of just, we grew up, we went our separate ways. Facebook kind of helped us kind of keep in touch just a little bit. So I got to see, how he's doing in his life, or whatever. But then it was shortly after high school when I think it was MySpace, I want to say, I noticed that he came out. And so, and I remembered saying to myself, as I was telling him earlier, I had two emotions immediately when that happened. One was shock, and the other one was a little sadness.
Yeah.
But we've never spoken about it in 20 years. And that, my friend, is why he was the first name, because I was like, you know what? I would like to have this conversation, and I think I'm not alone in that. I think that there's probably, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people out there who have similar circumstances that may or may not reach out and have that conversation. So I think that's what we're doing today, is we're having that conversation. So you guys are watching it live, man. We're rekindling a friendship here.
Look at you with the context saved.
Exactly.
Right.
And just, full disclosure, David, I have a similar story, but unfortunately, the friend that I wish would have eventually had a conversation with me, he passed away before we were able to ever have that conversation. And I tell Trinity, one of the saddest things is that he went to his death without ever knowing that I would have been so okay with whatever he had to tell me. And I feel emotion right now just thinking about him and knowing that he died thinking somehow that he had to keep that from me or not say to me, or I don't know. I'll never know why he didn't tell me. He just didn't tell me. So I'm so glad you guys are able to do that.
Yeah, and that's part of it, man. Is where I'm at in my journey, I guess, is I do reflect on things, and it's important. Connection is important to me more so now than it's ever been in my life. The older we get, and part of that is also legacy, right? What we're leaving behind, how we're perceived by others, and just I view myself a certain kind of way. I'm not sure if everybody views it the same or not. So those kinds of things are definitely on my mind. And being that this is a spiritual program, obviously that is a spiritual thing, right? Is how we're perceived by others, how we're impacting the world around us, that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I mean, so let me paint a broad picture here for those of you who haven't known me for over 20 years. And David, feel free to chime in if I get anything wrong here. But essentially, we met. It was we both went to Discovery Middle School. I want to say it was the Challengers, but I could be wrong on that one. I don't remember what our name was. But anyways, yeah, it's been so long. But anyways, so we became friends, and I remember us, hanging out. I think he was new to the area. I became friends with him. We would hang out. We would stay at each other's houses. Hey kids, that's what we used to do back in the day. We didn't have FaceTime and PlayStations and internet and stuff. Like you actually had to go to somebody's home if you wanted to spend time with them. Yeah. But anyway, so we used to have those all the time, and we used to cause some trouble and do some things that I don't know why we did them. We used to run around. I think it was both neighborhoods, but I remember specifically his neighborhood. We would run around and we would pull the power switches on people's homes and turn off the power. Why? I don't know. It would just
had nothing else to do.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have the internet to sit there and look at crazy things all night, so we found ways of amusing ourselves. But anyways,
so hey kids, get back to vandalism. Stop sitting there on your devices and get back to vandalism, like the old folks
we didn't
did.
break anything. We just turned off their power.
Yes. Which
it became a game. Let's see how long it takes to turn it back on because they don't realize it's the outside switch.
Yeah, I think for me personally, right now, if somebody came and switched off my power, I'd be really pissed off at that little kid.
I wouldn't know. And I wouldn't go outside and switch it because I wouldn't even know. You're right.
Yeah, it's and we did it at nighttime too, so sometimes they're even sleeping. Now thinking back, it was a really stupid thing. Kids, don't go out and do that. Anyways, I digress. So then, we moved on to high school, and then I think that was the start of the separation, but it wasn't like an intentional thing, at least not on my end. It was, and that was the time where we had multiple different classes, and we had a massive campus. It was 2 schools that they turned into one. It was 2 separate schools, and the year we moved into that one, it turned into an east and west campus. So our middle school became it became the east side of our high school. So it was essentially 2 massive campuses, and so if you had classes on either side of it, you would go through the entire school year without ever seeing that person. So I think that's what ended up happening to us is we just had different classes and we kind of just fell into different groups and just did our thing. I think we had a type of relationship in high school where we saw each other, we would communicate, and we kind of go on our way. And then after high school, once again, this was before MySpace and Facebook, everybody kind of just loses connection for the most part. Phone numbers change, they get lost, people go to college or whatever. You lose contact. And then this magical thing called the internet came around and got really big, and we all started having it. And then this thing called MySpace happened, and social media was born, and that allowed us to kind of get connected with people and catch up on things and kind of see where they're at. And so that's kind of what happened for me, right? So I went through that whole thing that probably most of us did when Facebook first hit, and that is go through and start typing up and seeing who you can see. And his was one of the names that I typed in. We became friends on Facebook, and then that began the process of voyeurism, right? Where we just didn't really communicate, but we at least looked at each other's pictures and kind of just see what the people were up to. And then I started noticing a trend. I started noticing some things. I was like, wait a minute. And then I think one time it was blatantly out there. I was like, oh my gosh, he's gay. And then that's when I was like, first I was shocked, right? I wasn't necessarily shocked in the sense that it was unbelievable, because I think in high school, I think I started noticing you were really pretty, man. And so I was just like, dude, I don't know, maybe not, I don't know. I never really cared enough to ask or cared enough to really make it a thing. I was in high school, so I had my own issues that I was working out too, so I wasn't trying to help anybody else or talk to anybody else about their issues. But my shock wasn't that you wore. My shock was that I never even it never came across at all. It just never was a conversation between the two of us. And then that was immediately trumped by a sadness. And I don't know. I don't know if I would have found out when I was like 19 if the sadness would have hit as when I found out at the age that I found out, because at that age when I don't remember the exact date or anything. I just know that I was at a point in my life where it mattered to me how I was seen by others, and it mattered to me how I was coming off, and so I was immediately sad, thinking, "Holy shit, did I did I ever make him uncomfortable? Did I make him think that he couldn't have talked to me? Was it a personal thing? I of course immediately took it on me, right? I immediately took it personal, completely disregarding that maybe you just weren't ready to tell anybody. Maybe you didn't know. Who knows? And I'm gonna give you an opportunity to express that. But I immediately personalized it and immediately started thinking, well, shit, is this something I did? Like I felt really bad, but I never felt comfortable enough to even reach out, to be honest with you. And I think that that was part of my lack of initiating more conversation over the years. Why it's been so long, because it was this weird kind of like pink elephant in the room that I didn't know if I wanted to address. Especially maybe I didn't want to hear. Yeah, dude, you were kind of an asshole back then. Like I didn't, if that was the case, maybe I just didn't want to hear it. I don't know. I can't put my finger on the exact reason. I just know that there was something preventing me from reaching out. And then where I'm at now, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna let that go on anymore. I always liked you. I've thought about you over the years. I've wanted to make sure you were doing well. Like when I've seen you post, you seem like you're doing a really great job for yourself in life, and I've always been happy for you. But I've never reached out, and so that's why I decided, you know what? I'm not gonna let another day to go by. This is perfect reason. Let me reach out, see how this dude's doing, and thankfully, I gotta say, man, I'm glad I did. And you picked up like nothing ever happened. Like we started talking as if we've been talking for 20 years, and for that I'm grateful and I'm excited. So, anything that I missed or anything you want to fill in there?
I was gonna say, I think that answers your question about were you, a pain in the butt back in the day? No, it was never anything like that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
See,
it was nothing
Richard,
like that.
Richard, I wasn't a bully. I know Richard watches this
Yeah.
program sometimes, so I'll make sure we put that out there.
Richard
Our
says,
guys keep rolling the eyes. It's like, no, I don't believe it. But you did hit on something that is probably more common than you believe. Taking it personal, right? Sort of making it about your experience and not knowing how to walk through it or to understand it or how to reach out. That is probably the most common theme I've grown up with and endured, just getting older. And that's a piece I have to help people walk through a little bit more. Like it's not about you, obviously. There's that part of the conversation, but I also have to respect there's a journey component for you or somebody else, like telling my mom or telling your family. Not everybody handles it well, right? And I had a very odd kind of coming out anyhow. But I was able to step back and realize, okay, this is my journey. And when we talk about what happened in high school, it was probably ninth, 10th grade when it became apparent to me what it was. Even though I had been named like best couple with some chick in 8th grade. I don't remember. I can't stare at something. I forget her last name, which is hilarious. Cheated on me with a Puerto Rican, ended up with a Puerto Rican, and then I ended up coming out gay anyway, so it worked out, right? But that kind of started the whole fun. And if she sees this, it's going to be hilarious. But that started kind of my own journey. We were talking earlier, like I didn't fit into one group. I didn't fit in with myself. I didn't know where I needed to be. And so I was just trying to go through that discovery, like, okay, who are these people? How can they help me identify and love maybe who I am and what I can bring? I didn't understand any of that. And you talk about, I call it the glow up, right? I would say probably between 9th and 10th grade, the braces came off, the glasses came off, and I finally was feeling a little more confident and all of that kind of fun part of the journey. But I don't think I had a very legit, like, hey, everybody, I'm gay. Maybe towards the end of high school afterwards,
Right.
I just didn't care so much anymore by 11th, 12th grade, because we were talking about earlier, just getting bullied and different things. I finally was just, enough is enough.
Right.
And then there were some interesting people that stood out. And I would say the reason why I would still hold you dear to this is because there's very few straight men in my life that I didn't find threatening. And that's kind of a theme you'll see with some gay men, because you just don't connect well with heterosexual men sometimes. That's why we always gravitate towards women. It's just familiar. You had that element of non-threatening because I could sense there was not a bias or a judgment coming from you. You had your own story, your own things you were going through. And so you weren't imposing any of that on me. And I think that's what I've always picked up on and always kept kind of tabs on you too and see what's going on in your life.
Thank you for that. That actually means a lot, man.
wow.
It's a rare quality. And then there was one other person in high school. I don't know if you remember this name, Francisco Diaz. The big jock,
I
popular
do.
jock,
I
right?
do. I'm actually still friends with him on Facebook.
Oh,
He was over here not too long ago, and he dated a mutual friend for a little while actually.
see, that's crazy small world how this happens. But I'll never forget in class, we were talking about bullying. Definitely bullied a lot in middle school and the early parts of high school. And I remember being in a class with him where he finally just turned to everybody and said, "Shut the hell up. Like, what's your problem? Like, leave him alone. That's not cool, guys." And that's when I started to realize, wow, there's allies out there. We didn't call them allies, but there's cool people out there, right? I don't have to be afraid of all these people, and that's what kind of helped the course and the journey, like I said. And then when and if I came out, I mean, there's different ways. Different friends will tell you their stories. Some of them are not perfect. There, there's some heartbreak in some of it. There's some, I didn't handle it well either, and nor did my family in some sense. But that's part of the journey.
That's part of that's the crazy thing, right? When we talk about perspectives, right? Because we talk about perspective a lot on this show. I don't remember you being bullied at all. Like I don't remember that. I don't know if I was present and I just don't remember it, or if I just never saw it. But
No.
it's my recollection, at least in high school, like everybody loved you. Like you were literally like the like Switzerland, man. Like you were right in the middle, and I didn't know anybody that had a problem with you, and everybody, actually kind of liked you. I didn't feel any people that were really either indifferent or against, right? And so it's just weird that you tell me a story of bullying, and I don't remember any of that, man. Like that's crazy.
And you know how those people are. Sometimes they don't want to do it in a big public forum. It's
Sure.
their own. They're battling whatever their own demons are, so they're letting it out on me in whatever way they needed to. Because it was really about them being uncomfortable. I think once that light bulb turned on for me, like I said, getting closer to 10th, 11th, I was like, this is their problem. This is not my problem. That's when I felt better about it. Still some struggles of what is it and what's my future going to be like, but
Right.
I got a little more comfortable with the details of it. But
Good for you,
yeah,
man.
it's a process.
No, that's awesome. And so when I hear stories all the time. When these discussions come up, people are like, I knew from like 5 years old, or I didn't know until whatever. Like, were you aware of any of those thoughts or feelings or anything? Like, as early as middle school? I mean, were you aware of it?
Uh, yeah, earlier. I would say my first boy crush is what I would call it, where I realized there was some kind of gravitational pull was fifth grade, fourth or fifth grade. But, I didn't quite understand. There was no term for it. I didn't know what it was going to be or
Right.
turn into. So I still had little girlfriends here and there. And of course, Latin family, oh my God, he's bringing the girls home. This is amazing. The machismo thing, the uncles, everybody was so proud, right? Which is funny later because then when I did come out to the family, like, well, yeah, we knew all along. I was like, just say something. It would have been an easier journey type thing. But
So how did your family take it? Like, because I remember your mom being really cool. Maybe that's just nostalgia speaking. I don't know, but I just remember her being really cool.
she was really cool. So how I came out to my mom, which was I didn't really come out to my mom. She found a stash of things that she should not find. And this was a time when we finally had internet, but you could print out things. And of course, she went in the one drawer. She shouldn't have printed out. There was VHS tape to also age myself, which she inserted in the VCR to figure out what it was.
Oh man,
That's how my mom found out I was gay, which to this day is the only fight we've ever actually had.
that's got to be
Um,
traumatizing for both of you.
Whew. Yeah, and all the friends were at the house when this was going down too, because
Oh
she
Jesus,
decided to
man!
confront me. There was like, why now? This is terrible.
Oh, is there a worse wave coming out than that?
God, my poor mother though. Like at the end, I just feel bad for my mom, like to have to find that stuff to find out. But I guess that's not that uncommon. It took her time. Like there wasn't it wasn't a horrible home life. She didn't take that out on me, but she struggled with blaming herself, kind of that same thing, taking it on herself, the guilt of I didn't provide him a good father figure. It's my fault. It's the life I've given him or didn't give him. He's going to have a terrible future. He's not going to be happy. He's going to be, put through so much. Like all of that went through her. And somehow two of my very machismo uncles were the ones that helped her because they were in a similar situation to Louis, what you were saying about a friend that maybe didn't get to tell my uncle that he was gay and had passed away. So that hit my uncle really hard. And he realized, wow, like this, who cares? Like this should not be something that limits the boundaries of a relationship or a connection. So these two uncles really helped my mom kind of walk through it and understand like, this is okay. He's going to be happy. Show him what happiness looks like. And and just continue with that love. And it took her time. Like, she wouldn't say boyfriend for a long time. It was always, is that your special friend? She says it with her little Latin accent. Like, your friend, not friend. Like, there's friends and then there's friend. But now she says, like, boyfriend, sweetheart, husband. Like, she's getting on my case. When are you going to get married, have kids, and settle down, kind of thing. So it's been a journey for her and myself, and it comes back to what they were brought up with, right? Very strict Catholic religious upbringing. We've also got Jehovah's Witness in the family, so it's a mixed bag. Right. It really is, and there's no other gay presence in my family for a very large Latin family, 28 cousins, to give you perspective, and of those cousins, they had 29 children too, so it was always a big topic in the family and very polarizing, but I kind of just walked to my own being, like, whatever. If you're not cool with it, that's your problem, it's not my problem. I don't know where that strength and courage came from, to be honest. I think, that's what helped me through a lot of it, but
okay. Now, is that, what I'm hearing, from the outside looking in, what I'm hearing sounds kind of like the essence of what Pride Month is, right? I mean, is that kind of how you would define it almost? It's just, that confidence, that loving of yourself kind of a thing? Is that why Pride Month is a thing?
That's probably what it means for me. It's how to know your own worth and have love for yourself and normalize that. I don't need to be treated differently because I'm gay. I just need to be respected as a human. I'm another human just like you. We can have completely different beliefs, and that's okay with me, but just respect who I am and how I live the same way I respect how you live, and understand there's differences, but dating in the gay world is not that different. We have the same fights, the same struggles, right? One's messy, one's not, right? Like, one's, very type A, the other one's just always late to everything. Like, it's all about the same. And I think that was my journey to realizing that I didn't need to think, well, gay relationships are so different. We got to get married on date 3 because that's just how it works. No, like, it's slow too. It's a process. Right. It's still a pain in the butt, just like anybody else.
Right on. And so when I first reached out to you, you sent me with 2 things. I guess we'll cover the first one. You asked me, or you made a comment. I don't remember if it was a question or a comment about being an ally, and I was it was kind of a mixed thought when you said that. Right. On one hand, I've never really looked into what that meant. I think I understood in the context of what you're saying what that was, and so I wouldn't mind if you to kind of define from your perspective what that means. But then also, we had a conversation. I think it was post show on Friday, Louis. Right? Was when we had the other guy on. I can't remember his name at the moment. But we had a conversation post show about the whole ally thing, and one of the things I said was I don't know if I would consider myself an ally or just as somebody who is just not concerned with certain things that, like, I don't care. Like, I don't respect or like somebody because or because this is present or this is not present. I just respect you as a person. It never really comes into my decision making, I guess. So I never really thought of myself as a quote unquote ally, I guess. But but I will stick up for somebody if I feel like they're being unjustly messed with, or I'm not going to judge somebody because of whatever they do. I don't care. I have so many more important things. The way I look at it, and I just had this conversation earlier this morning. I have so many more important things in my life going on that I got to worry about than worrying about what somebody's doing. Like, I don't care. It means nothing to me. But so how would you define ally? Like, what does that mean for the people who are listening to this who maybe feel like they are one or want to know if they are one? Like, how would you define that?
It's a fun question because I bet anybody you would ask will give a different answer that's more personal to them, right? So I would say straight ally for me is somebody who sees me or the LGBT community as other humans, respects differences, but also respects that there's a lot of work to be done as far as awareness, right? In education, that you don't need to be threatened by the LGBT community. They're not going to corrupt your homes. They're not going to corrupt your kids or your families. Like, that's, and I feel heterosexual communities went through that over the decades too. You can look from the time of McCarthyism to just conservatism to socialism, liberal, left, right. It doesn't matter. It's just a different point of view. And how do you respect that other person's point of view? So for me, it's that. Just respect who I am and stand up for us when you see that there's some stupid injustice, like you said. If you're seeing that, you're going to kind of stand correct. And maybe taking that effort to learn a little bit more about it, right? I can say even personally for the transgender community, this is something that's really hot topic right now because most of us didn't give it a lot of attention. We didn't understand what it is. We just summed it up as it's a guy who just wants to dress up as a woman. It's just a gay man. No, it's so much more complicated than that. And especially for the younger kids going through this, I'm trying to educate myself on what does that mean? What does that journey look like for that community? And how can we support them? I'm not going to be in their shoes, but I can help at least support and drive change and awareness. And that's how I'm trying to contribute even as a gay man and gay ally. So that's what I'd be looking for.
Interesting.
Just make an effort.
And they speaking of them, they started a lot of the rights movement, right? Once I think it was in New York or something. The one gentleman on one of our other shows mentioned it, and I've actually watched a documentary about it before. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. I'm having brain farts left and right today, but
Martha P. Jack.
Yeah, there was a restaurant or something, right? That or a bar, I think it was, and they.
The big popular one is the Stonewall riots.
There you go. Thank you.
Everybody knows about. Yeah. But there was even stuff that happened before that. Martha P. Johnson was very popular for the Stonewall riots, but you can go back further to the 1800s, early 1900s, even the flapper era in the 20s, of people starting to defy the norms and kind of stand up for themselves. What really hit the head and for the Stonewall riots in the 70s was just build up, right? Build up, build up, build up. And finally they're like, we've had enough. We're being targeted, we're being persecuted. And why, it kind of goes back to allies a little bit. Why spend all that energy sending out that negative hate? Like, where's that coming from? What's so deeply bothering you that you've got to do all of that? And that's where I say the awareness and education may help some of these people. But the transgender community, we're the first ones to really stand up for all of the LGBT community, to your point. Like, they're the ones that started, they threw the first brick is the comment, to really start that riot and get that movement going, which then turned into Christopher Street Liberation Day 1 year later, to celebrate and commemorate that. But it wasn't the first time that these things have started. And I think that's important to know. There's a lot of history that goes into this, and it'd be awesome if we would teach it in schools because it did shape the country and how it's changed a lot of policies and households and things like that.
Well, it's kind of inspiring, man. And Louis, I'm gonna let you talk to this in a second. It is kind of inspiring in a sense, right? It's a trivial example, but it's the only one I have to relate to. I remember when I first got my motorcycle, right? When I first got my motorcycle, it was the weirdest thing. I would be driving around, and every other person on a motorcycle, it doesn't matter if it was like a Harley, it doesn't matter if it was another sport bike, we would all just wave. So it was just weird, and I can't explain it. Only people who've ridden will understand it. It's just weird. You instantly feel like you're part of something bigger. You feel like you're part of like a weird brotherhood, and like no matter what happens, like another motorcyclist will stop for another one, or whatever. It's just this weird kind of camaraderie that you have with one another instantly just because you share that in common. So it's like a weird belonging almost. And so that's where the inspiration comes from, is every individual that I speak to that identifies himself as LGBTQ, I'm not even going to pretend like I know them all. I saw another one. I think there's another one now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they it's like a weird kind of kinship amongst them, and it's very inspiring. And Louis, like that was one of your biggest inspirations, right? When you associated with addiction and stuff, right?
Yeah. What I love about it was what I saw was a community that was getting a lot of crap from a lot of people, myself included. I wasn't very nice to gay people as a young person. I just kind of fell in line with what the norm was, and I didn't question it. I didn't challenge it, and I just played along like so many of us do, right? We just a bunch of moo cows, man. We just go along with it, right? Mm-hmm. And for no reason. Like I always told Trinity, I had no reason. There was really no reason other than just, that's not me. But in recovery, I felt like there was a lot of stigma. That you're an addict and that you're dirty and that you're weak and that you're stupid. And so we were being told, when I'd go to the rooms, I was told, well, you got to stay in the closet. Like, you got to be anonymous and you can't talk about it. Because if you talk about it, people are going to shame you and they're going to think differently about you, and they're not going to give you jobs. You're not going to be professional. I still remember even my parents telling me, you can't tell people that. Don't tell people that story. Don't tell people that you have a drug problem or alcohol problem. And and I remember saying, well, why? Like, why can't I? And they're like, well, people will look at you differently. And I'm saying, well, that's their problem. And so as the gay movement progressed in my 20s and 30s, I was inspired because I saw a movement of people that I felt had even a bigger, darker secret than I did. And even more challenge than I did. And man, they united together and said something. I'm like, why are we doing that? Why are we in recovery uniting together and just saying, look, man, if you don't like it, you don't like it. So what? You know how many addicts there are out there in recovery that you just don't know about? Much like, you know how many gay people are out there that you just don't know about? Stop making people feel uncomfortable because of the way you think about them. And start allowing them to be who they are, because it really doesn't matter to you. You know, and I no longer even think of about gay people just about who they're having sex with. I look at it deeper than that, more like just being free in your own skin, just being free to say whatever you got to say, or feel whatever you got to feel without worrying about that you have something to say about it. And what you're going to say about it is going to remind me of some pain that I had when I was a kid. You know, that for some reason, no matter how healthy I get, that pain is still very hurtful. Because we all kind of have those too. You know, we all kind of have something that we experienced early on. At least I do. I have some traumatic things that happened to me as a young kid, and there's still things that may happen that just remind me about that. And it's like, wow, that's weird how that still has some sort of space in my head or some sort of space on my heart. You know what I mean? And so I I've learned a lot from the gay community, and I think that's what allowed me to accept the gay community, to be honest with you. What allowed me to accept gay people as much as I do today was the strength that I saw in them, and just the freedom, the freedom that I feel like so many people dared to express, and I'm in awe, and I love it so much, and I think that's where that's where my relationship with gay people comes from. It's like, man, I'm in awe of you, you know, like that is so very cool how free you can feel, and how liberated you must feel when you just take something like that out of the way, just move that aside.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. They're living authentic lives, their authentic selves, and that's what rattles the insecure and the people that have a lot weighing on them that they haven't dealt with, right? So it's just they're just dishing it out back at us, and
Yeah.
it's a community, and that's what really helped this community grow, is that strength together and just shine. And I think you're hitting something really positive there. Just for the addicts, where I live in Lake Worth, it's a very big area for rehabilitation. There's a lot of centers, and there's a lot of that negative context around here. But some of my neighbors help run some of these centers, and they tell me about those same struggles. I'm like, it's just like in the gay community, persecuted for something that happened, a moment in time or a season, you know, or reoccurring. Like it doesn't mean that person is a bad person or has a bad heart. They're a human that go through the same struggles as anybody else. Straight, gay, doesn't matter. Give them those opportunities, but don't. And just because you're not your authentic self or feel that free and liberated, don't punish them because they are. It took them a lot of work to get there, and that should be praised. And you're asking, what is a straight ally? I think you just explained that. You're celebrating their authentic lives and who they are, and you appreciate and respect that they're open about themselves. That's a straight ally. Like, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, David. Like, because you know, you guys are friends. You hung out, and it sounds like you had already had some ideas, even while you guys were already hanging out. You had already thought about those kinds of things. Are you able to recall, like specifically, like wanting to say something or wanting to ask or whatever you were feeling at that moment? Because it sounds like you guys had a lot of good times together. And it's not that you have any ill feelings towards him or that you have any judgment towards him. And obviously he has no judgment towards you. Do you recall any significant moment in time where you almost said something?
I want to say yes, and not just with Trinity, with multiple people, but it was more, hey, do you ever have thoughts like this? Because again, I didn't quite have a name for it. I think, especially early on, like elementary school, I didn't know what gay was. That wasn't in my circle. Growing up in Winter Springs, that was such a secluded, like I was one of three Latinos in this entire Caucasian school, right? Like it was just a very small bubble. But I'm sure there were times that did come up, because I can remember with a couple different people, like, just, hey, do you think it's always just a girl boy thing? But a lot of times I would watch these people first, see how do they act, what kind of comments do they make, and that's usually when I would decide to be a little more open or just be closed off and set the boundaries. And that happened with my family too. I just see what they would say about gay people, and if they're bashing, I'm like, well, I'm just not going to talk to them about that. Because at that time too, I wasn't in any place to try to educate them or make them aware of how they should be speaking. So yes, like down to the minute and place and time, maybe not so much. But like I said, I remember Trinity felt like somebody that was a safe person to be around, and just that alone was huge for me for what I was going through between like sixth to ninth, 10th grade with the bullying and the stuff that was going. So I almost didn't need to speak about it because one, I didn't want to ruin it specifically. It was like, wow, I've got a friend, supporter, probably somebody that'll stand up for me. Like those are things I can kind of pick up on. Believe it or not, there was also a girl in 7th grade that used to go beat up guys whenever they would call me very bad names, Jessica Davis or something. I'll never. I haven't. You remember her? I legit have a memory of her running up to a guy, nailing him down to the ground, and just beating him up because he called me a fag. Right? Like, so again, drawn to those that would protect us because I did not have a voice for myself back then. I think Trinity could say I was a little timid, shy. Still have some of that to this day until I really know you. Then I'm like a chatterbox, but safe space. I definitely sense that. I'll give Trinity that.
And once again, man, thank you for that. It actually does mean a lot to me. That really makes my day, man. But I think that so I think it was yesterday. Yesterday there was a video that came out. There was I almost said Oakland. There's a Vegas Raider as a player who came out with a video, and he expressed his sexuality. And Louis, I found out where he was on Hard Knocks for the Browns. He was the one that was the guy who was talking about the finances and stuff. That was him. Because when I knew I recognized him, but I didn't remember where from. And I knew he's a football player, but I'm not a big Raiders fan. Anyways, I digress. Point is, he came up with a video yesterday, and he made a comment at the very beginning of his video about how he can't wait for the day where these videos aren't necessary, and then he proceeded to explain his sexuality, and he was going to donate some money, things of that nature. And I got to be honest with you, man. I've kind of, my initial response was one of, I don't think there is a need for those videos. Like, nobody really cares these days. I do think you're always going to have outliers and stuff like that. But I think the country as a whole, like the majority of them, most people don't care these days. So you're always going to have something to do. But if I'm honest with you, during this discussion, I think it kind of hit me a little bit. I think I understand better now why the need for that video still exists. And I don't know if it's the same perspective that everybody else is sharing, but I know from my own self, because it was a question that I kept wondering, like, why? Like, what is it that I'm not understanding in this situation? But I think it helps in a sense of, the way I think that Pride Month is still important is there's still a stereotype there, right? I think that, and I think our guest on Friday kind of touched on it a little bit, but we didn't really go down that rabbit hole. And that was this image of what we think gay to be, and this box that we put him in. The flamboyance, the hanging out with girls, picking out, clothes, things of that nature. That now we all know logically that that's not the case, but that's kind of where we all mentally kind of go to, whether we want to or not. Yep. But that's just not true. And I think that that's where the Pride Month is useful. Is if it's continuously put in front of our face that your neighbor, your friend, that bro that you've been building a house with, like, oh yeah, he's gay, by the way. I think the more we're confronted with gay isn't a defining factor. It's just who I'm attracted to. I am still me. I'm still doing these things that we've been doing all along. I think until that wall gets broken down, I think there's still a need for the Pride Month, I guess. So for me, that's kind of what I pictured is there are still, I don't want to call them barriers or what, I don't know what word I would give to it, but there's this image that's created that's just is not true. Go ahead.
I want to piggyback on that because I don't think it's that it's not true. I don't think it's true to all. And here's what I want to say about that. What I'm saying is that I think that we have come to accept as a society the gay people that we already felt may be gay, that we already had some indication or they fit in the box that we already have for them, right? Mm-hmm. But struggle when it comes to a guy that looks like you or talks like you or hangs out like you. Trinity, you exhibit machismo so much that I think society may still struggle with you being gay, but not necessarily someone else. Like,
Right.
you know, like we had Brian on the other day, or Headley on the other day.
Yeah.
You know, Headley's a little less of a tell, Brian a lot more of a tell.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think that that's kind of what it is. It's almost like when I say I'm Latino and then people look at me, or I say I'm Mexican. If I say I'm Mexican specifically, people go, well, you don't look Mexican. I think we still have that response.
I think that's,
well, you
that's
don't look gay, or you don't act gay, or you don't, you know, sound gay. And maybe, remember when you asked why do you feel like he may still have to say it? And I'm thinking, well, probably because he knows there are football players and real macho acting guys that have yet to be able to come out. Yeah, the cheerleader guy maybe feel comfortable to come out. The guy in band maybe feel able to comfortable to come out. But maybe the linebacker next to him, that his dad is always saying, yeah, you're a badass son, you're bad to go out there. He still is afraid to come out. And maybe not necessarily for society, but in his own family. And I think what I hear pretty consistently, it's not necessarily that society has hurt our gay community. It's more their own family. Those are the wounds that are a little bit deeper and harder. Because from what I've seen, gay people do a really good job at finding an external family and creating an external family. But those wounds from their mom and dad and brothers and sisters, those are the ones that some of them, by never coming around, that is, you go to your grave with those.
Hands down. Very true. And I think to your point, Trinity, it just needs to be normalized, whether it's on TV, in sports, like it needs to be a non-issue. Like we need to get to a point where those videos don't need to happen, right? You don't put a video out there saying, hey, I'm straight. Like it's that same concept. Like we shouldn't have to do that and stop putting everybody in these buckets. Your point, if you look back on early TV, like what was the gay representation? The very flamboyant, the very over the top. And I would say until I moved out to Colorado, that's when I learned, wow, there are other types of gays that look like Trinity, build cars, build houses, and do all this stuff. I had never met any of that. Living in Florida, it was just, it's a very different scene out here. That opened up my eyes. And then that's also what opened my eyes up to realize, wow, not all straight men are exactly the same. Some of them are pretty metro or very flamboyant, and they're not gay. They're just, it was what they were surrounded with, the confident in their own skin, and it's, it is what it is. So stop
I agree. And I think that's why, for me personally, that's why I think there's still very much a need for Pride Month. And why there's still I can see how there's a need for those types of videos, is to continue to break down those last few walls, right? Like, I think many walls have been broken down. I mean, look, we're a long ways away from the things that I grew up in the 80s and 90s, much as you as well. We're a long ways away from that. I mean, we're, it's on, many different popular shows. We're having a show now talking about it openly. Me as a virile straight male, I have the tattoo there for my my son. So we've come a very long ways, but I think it is important actually to not stop now, right? Like to okay, we made it this far, using the football analogy. Don't make it to the 5-yard line and quit. Go ahead and cross the goal line. Let's knock down those last couple walls to where, like you said, Louis, I think that we do need to get comfortable with the idea that gay isn't a mold. It's just a thing. Because I agree with you. Most people don't picture that virile dude out. The John Waynes of the world, or the the Arnold Schwarzeneggers. The old school TV heroes that we grew up watching could be gay. Like that concept, I think, is still very hard for people to wrap their heads around. Go ahead.
Well, that's what's funny, is that it was Hollywood, right? But it was Hollywood that was actually doing that. It was Hollywood having the Rock Hudsons of the world stay. You had a gay producer, gay director, gay main actor, gay heads of studios continuously still promoting that for money. They knew that financially they would never make it if they would tell their truth. So it's easy. Hollywood has flipped that script so much, because now they're saying, well, we still make money now. We can still make money off this. Before we had to tell the Rock Hudsons of the world, hey, Rock, can you just act a little bit more, when you say that, be a little bit more.
There's a huge community out there. They'll support us. They'll support the film industry, the TV industry, and it's So true.
So
It starts with that representation.
we have a comment from Enrique. Enrique says, interesting, informative, and brave show today. Hashtag anti-stigma. Pain does not discriminate. It comes in many forms. And in our personal/professional experiences, we learn that very quickly. Thank you, David, for your candor. Right on, Enrique. Thank you for that comment, brother.
Fist bump.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so I think... so thank you, man. Thank you for because I've had that internal debate for the last couple of days. After I watching that video, just trying to think to myself, is there a need for it? Is there not? Like, where are we at right now? And I think that this conversation, aside from us catching up after 20 plus years, I think it answered that question for me. I don't think that was your intent, obviously, but that was for me. That's what I took from it, was very much a need. Right on. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll even say in the gay community, sometimes we forget too. Because you're in your bubble, you live in your community, you forget there's still people suffering. There's kids that are in rural America that are still just, their parents are not made aware or educated on, like, this isn't different. So I'm reminded sometimes through every Pride Month, like, wow, this is something we need to continue to educate and inform about and support where we can, and just listen. Sometimes they just need somebody to listen, right? Like, they don't know how to figure it out. And there's varying degrees of the LGBT community, right? Everything from the fluid, from the gay, the bisexual, pansexual. Like, it's such a long list. Like, just listen, just be an ear. That's all they.
And I think that is a major takeaway. Is I think that I'm gonna be an optimist here and say that the average individual walking around does not want anybody close to them experiencing that kind of pain and that kind of rejection and that kind of turmoil. But I think that sometimes they need to be reminded that maybe your stance is contributing to that for that person. And once they make that kind of connection, then they'll maybe stop and think before they start to talk or criticize or shun, because I don't think that the average person wants their loved one to feel that way. But Louis, go ahead. You had something to say? You didn't do the daring thing, man. So
no, I already forgot. But I'm going to go off something that you just said right now. I also think it's important to have the choice conversation, because there's a lot of there's a difference between choice and it's who you are, right? And so although I think behaviors are a choice, who you are is not a choice. So what you're experiencing internally as a person sometimes is something that you're struggling with, and sometimes you're struggling with it because of who you think you're supposed to be or who you think people want you to be. And I think that's something that's anyone can identify with, anyone in life, whether you're a kid in school and your parents want you to be a doctor and you're just, I don't want to be a doctor, and so you're struggling with that, and you want to be a baker, you just want to bake bread, but your family goes, no, you have to be a doctor because that's what we are, so even things like that, there's people out there that struggle with that. And so what I encourage everyone to do during Pride Month is don't just think of it as a gay straight thing. This is about be free to be who you are month, kind of. It's an expression of, I take the word pride because I don't like that any group can own the word pride, right? Just like Trinity, right? You took the unicorn, you took June, you're not allowed. You know what I mean? This is summertime, and what did Brian say? It's because it was summer. It's the most fun month. It made sense, right? It was just a joke. But the point is that this is where we should all be prideful of who we are, whatever that is, whatever it is. Not only of what you really are, but what you choose to be. And those are two separate things. And I think both should be celebrated. As long as you're not harming other people. And look, there's a lot of people out there that think differently than you, that act differently than you, that internally embrace things differently than you. It doesn't make you better than them. It doesn't make them better than you. But it does make us all human, and I think that's the label that we all carry, and that's the label. Well, hopefully, maybe, because my wife does say that aliens are here, so maybe they are. But we're all human.
Right on.
That's perfect.
Yeah, man. So it's time to start wrapping up. I'm seeing that clock ticking away. So David, man, you got any final words, man? Any final thoughts about either your story, Pride Month, or anything that you think that people need to hear, or you want to get off your chest, something you want to say, man? Here's your moment.
Well, I'm grateful that you guys are open to having this conversation and sharing that with everybody and giving me this opportunity. And and just understand that we all have complex belief systems, and it's a journey to work through those, and that's no different, gay or straight. So continuing to support each other is just just have an open mind and open heart and be there for them. Even if you don't completely understand it, just use that as an opportunity to come out of yourself and be present with those folks. So big thank you, and glad we got to reconnect.
Right on.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything to say other than what I just already said, but I do want to thank you, David, and I want to thank everybody out there that's ever just expressed their voice on a difficult topic or a topic that comes with shame or stigma attached to it so easily. David, I just want to tell you and everyone listening that there's many more of us out there that appreciate you, that accept you than sometimes you may feel like. And don't ever let the ugly of us ever make you think differently. There's many, 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 many more of us that fully accept you for exactly the way you are, without exception.
I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, so real quick before I get to my final thoughts, once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate your eyeballs or your ears, however you're ingesting this. Speaking of which, as always, every Tuesday from 1 to 2, usually. Today was a little bit late because somebody double booked. We won't call names, Louis. But anyways, normally 1 to 2. If you guys want to watch us live, if you want to take part in the discussion, you can go to facebook.com/WPSN99, and you can watch that live and comment back and forth and give us your opinions. And as always, you want to watch the edited version later on, you can go to youtube.com/Dharma Time. Or if you just want to listen to it, you can listen to any of your major podcasting platforms, and we should be there. If we're not, reach out to us, and we will do our best to get onto that platform. But anyways, I digress. So my final thoughts on this. Normally I do 3 tips, but I think I'm just going to give just a message, I guess. That's what I feel compelled to do. I think Pride Month is an uncomfortable topic for many, many people, right? Doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. Maybe you're uncomfortable to talk about your own situation. Maybe you're uncomfortable to hear other people's situations. Maybe you're just kind of fed up with the world at large at the moment and you don't see a need for things, or you're just kind of angry with all the different problems out there in the world. Who knows? Who knows your specific situation? But I will say, from a spiritual perspective, it does come down to love and compassion, man. Love and compassion for yourself and love and compassion for everybody else and whatever journey or wherever place on your journey you're at, right? And so what I would say to those individuals who are allies, keep on keeping on. Make your presence known. Make the people around you aware that you're comfortable, and understand that when things like Pride Month and things of that nature come on, maybe they're not talking to you. They're talking to the people out there who don't think the way you think yet, and allow them to be spoken to, essentially. And if you're on the other side of the fence and you're anti-Pride Month, I would encourage you to look inward to figure out why. What is it about it that's bothering you so much? Is it something that you just seriously just can't get over, or is there something deeper there that you need to look into and address? Because how somebody else lives their life really shouldn't affect you as much as it does. And I think that's all I got for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. David, feel free to hang out a little bit afterwards. We can kind of just close up with all of us. But for everybody else, that's all I got. Now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.